Hi, I'm Hirala.
And I'm Rohan now.
Welcome to The Long Take. This week we're discussing Air, the new Amazon movie that's out now on Prime Video, starring Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, also directed by Affleck. Been a while, right? He hasn't directed movies for years now, I think.
Live by Night, the
Which was
last
like,
one.
what, 7 years ago, if I'm not wrong?
What are you saying?
Was it not? Am I wrong about that?
I mean, I remember watching it for work, so it can't be 7 years. It's 2016, yeah, 6-ish years almost.
Yeah, basically 7 at this point.
It's been a while.
Yeah, what do you make of this new effort? A movie about not just making shoes, like marketing a shoe and selling it to someone.
It's not even about that, that's what I thought it was going to be about, like marketing a shoe, but you don't actually see the shoe until like very late in the movie. What I thought was very clever about the way that this movie has been put together is that it's basically a sports movie in which a scout is trying to sign a player, but it just happens to be for a corporation and not a team.
Right. Yeah, that's basically what he is, right? Like at the beginning, he's going to like high school basketball games, but he's not there to like find the best players for a team. He's there to find the best players like to give them shoes.
Yeah, which is the Adam Sandler movie that came out last year, right?
Hustle. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is in terms of just tone and structure, very similar, and there's a very strong 90s, early 2000s quality to this movie, which straight away that you don't see that very often. But like I said, it's very clever of them to kind of brush the let's get rich, let's make other people rich angle of this story and focus on these basically one character who is on the screen in every scene and another who is
I think they're able to do that because like they portray him as an underdog, right? Like Nike is a $1 billion company, they tell us that, and like they're selling half the running shoes in the US. But when it comes to this particular department of just like basketball shoes, their Nike is third, as we were told early on. So when you put as you said, our main character, Sonny Vaccaro, as put him as the underdog, then you like in a way rooting for him. Like, yeah, like you deserve like better.
No, but the smart thing that they do, is genius move of this movie, is that everybody is an underdog, right? It somehow convinces you that Nike is an underdog.
Nike basketball is an underdog. Nike is definitely not an underdog.
Yeah, but we never, not even once do they mention that Nike, एक बार mention करते हैं कि yeah, it's a successful company, this, that, track and field, whatever. But the movie is framed from the perspective that Nike in the basketball arena is a massive underdog, and that is what you're supposed to focus on.
Yeah, they're like almost like a laughing stock, right? At one point, the agent is like, "Oh, I heard you're gonna get shut down."
Yeah, so that is a massive thing to kind of dupe the audience into believing, right? Like Nike is an underdog, Matt Damon,
especially when you're when we're looking back at from today, right? Where
and even Michael Jordan is an underdog in this movie.
Exactly. Everyone knows today that Air Jordan is like a multi-billion-dollar business. So to sell us on that, knowing like the entire audience already knows where this movie is going and where it's going to end.
Yeah, I mean more than where it's going to end, you're watching the movie with the knowledge that all these people probably became extremely rich, right?
Yeah.
And that is something that you're either not going to be able to ignore, or you're just going to go along for the ride, and the movie is going to successfully, in a way, tell you to forget that fact for 2 hours, right? That you watch this without the knowledge that all these people are extremely rich, like their generations could survive on what you're going to watch in this movie. And which is, I thought, like an impossible task, right? Because I listened to I didn't watch the trailer, but I when I hear what the movie is about, I'm like, why would I be interested in watching that movie? But then when you get into it, I like really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fun time.
I mean, obviously it helps that you have like charismatic actors selling the roles, right? Like that's obviously crucial to it.
Huge. And that was something I thought about. Like, just what we watch Ghosted, right?
Yeah.
उसमें charismatic actors को डाला, उसमें nothing happened.
Yeah.
It was a waste of everybody's time. But
yeah,
in
but
this
this movie
one,
knows how to use the talents of every actor. Like Matt Damon is cast in a everyman role, like like dad bod as pura, like he's like going through that phase in his life. Jason Bateman also is like in the middle somewhere, like he's like okay, slightly more successful than like Matt Damon's character, but also like not all the way there. Only Phil Knight obviously is like a star, right? Because he's the CEO of a public company. Like he's already like done everything. He can see everything.
But Phil Knight, chalo, you can. Affleck has more to work with. Let's put it that way. He's more of a he's a more colorful figure.
Yeah, I actually was surprised that in a way like they let sort of dunk on the CEO a little bit, across the movie, which I found funny. I was like, wait, the movie is using Nike's name everywhere. Did they like? Is this just how like movies are allowed to maybe in the US where you don't even have to like go to the company to get like approval and just like you can make the CEO look like whatever you want?
Yeah, the CEO is it's a very interestingly written character because you're right. Like he
keeps spouting that like whole Tibetan philosophy nonsense every time you see him, right?
Yeah,
which is made to look like a caricature at some point. A lot of times.
Yeah, that's not presented seriously. Like Matt Damon's character makes fun of that. But then whatever those fundas that he has on the wall, right? Even though Matt Damon is making fun of it,
they're literally presented as like title cards across
title cards, right? But initially they're presented as punchlines, like haha, to a joke that you've kind of been watching.
No, I think they're both. I think they flip between like sometimes they're serious, sometimes they're funny. Like it depends on the scene they want to use. But sometimes they're actually presented as like, oh, this is a real thing and this is actually works.
It does work, right? So towards the end is when you're like, oh yeah, so his whatever commandments, they work, right? And they're corny and a little bit like weirdly earnest, and that's kind of the tone of the movie also.
But that's how like businesses are, right? Like every business like businesses that run on philosophies, quote unquote philosophies, are like this. They are like super earnest because like as you said, right? Like eventually it's all about just making money for everyone involved. But like you have to feel good while you're doing it, right?
No, but all of that is when you hear about it, like Twitter ke ye philosophies hai, Facebook was built on these. You laugh, right? It's a farce. It's all nonsense. All of you people are the worst human beings on the planet. You're wasteful. You're exploitative. All you care about is how much money you make.
And they say in the movie, right? Like eventually a show is just a show.
But again, like the weird thing about this movie is that it either is not aware that there is room for satire, or Affleck has decided that absolutely no way, I'm not allowing even a fraction of satire in my movie. I'm going to play it completely straight.
Yeah, like actually everyone's talking to an 18-year-old and they're like talking to him as if he's God. Yeah. This is not even like Jordan, when he actually became God of basketball. This is Jordan entering NBA.
Yeah.
And they're already talking to him as if he's God.
No, but that's also after the first act, right? First act, Damon is spending all his time trying to convince people that this is someone that you want to pay attention to, even if you don't.
Yeah, he's trying to convince because this is like, we know who Jordan is, but in the world, he has to like pitch Jordan as the player, right? Everyone's like, yeah, spread your bets, don't like bet on one guy. And he's like, no, this guy is like the face of NBA.
Which I watched The Last Dance, but I don't remember this part of it where people were dismissive of Jordan. They were like, "Aisa kuch nahi hoga." I don't remember this bit.
I mean, to be fair, Last Dance was produced by Jordan, so I don't think that part would have been like kept. He would be like,
no, but doesn't that serve his narrative? Like, no one believed in me when I started out.
No, I think the narrative is Jordan thought he always was God.
He can believe he's God, but then doesn't that help his, like, people didn't believe in me, but here I am.
The Last One was like on a very tiny focus period, right? It wasn't about like Jordan's rise and fall. It was about like the team like in a particular year, and then obviously then they would use like moments from the past, but ultimately it was about like the team's comeback for like that particular season, right? So I don't think it was like that. It also had to like cover like multiple players. Like there were episodes which were just like about like his teammates, which he would not even be part of that for a long while. So, and they only had like 5-6 episodes.
Anyway, I mean the whatever over the years that you picked up is I was fully under the impression that Jordan was like some sort of prodigy. High school में ही उसको देख लिया गया था and they were like, yeah, he's going to be the great. But I don't know how true it is, but in this movie they imply that initially no one believed that he was going to do anything, but after he basically signed with Nike and started out in the NBA, whatever, that's when people were like, yeah, we always knew, everyone just changed their tune. I don't know, he wasn't even, what is he, like 6th pick in the draft? I'm not sure.
I think, no, third.
Okay, but there you go, right? Like otherwise,
yeah, if it's third pick in the draft, like think you are a big thing automatically, at least for that year.
But pehla shuru mein to he does all that, and then very quickly people are like, okay, go for it, which is a little sketchy though. Like you never really understand why Phil Knight is so easily like swayed. Like pehle to usko paise nahi dene the.
Exactly, like we could be swayed because we're like, yeah, it's Michael Jordan, bro. Like how do you not know? But like they do not know, right? Like they have no idea. Like there's like actually one scene where like Phil Knight brings up that, right? He's like, hello, Sonny, you do this every year. You're like, this is the next guy, this is the next guy. So like, how is Jordan different, right? And they never really question it. He just says, I'm willing to bet my career on it. I'm like, bro, are you actually willing to bet your career? Like, I did the real Sonny Vaccaro actually say that? I doubt it. Because like, how do you know this is actually gonna be like the guy?
But see, that scene is, it takes you, it's like a shot of kind of realism that, yeah, it probably wasn't as, like dramatically perfect.
Yeah, as so short. I don't think, everyone was like fully convinced like this was the thing that was going to change the game for them.
But again, like that happens early, and then just the transformation of Sonny himself realizing, and as you watch Sonny, you are also fully convinced because part of you already knows. But then, even if you didn't know who this person is, who Michael Jordan is, just the way that those scenes have been constructed, you're like, of course he's the greatest ever, right? Like, if you just how they've been, like the scene in which he watches the match and then he kind of breaks it down, he breaks down the play, and just the performance of like Damon's performance in that scene, and Chris Tucker and Jason Bateman or whoever, just them kind of also being convinced by his argument, that is enough, right? You're like, of course, like I get it. Now
right, it's like one basket, it's like one tiny moment of some college game, but this guy's like, this is the moment,
right? And that scenes like that are what make this movie, right?
And then that's why like the other scene is like Damon's like sell, right, to the family,
which is a great scene, right? Which is something that you would, if you're not on board with this movie, you would laugh at. Ki chup kar,
But again, I think it also helps that again it's like Matt Damon doing the scene,
which is just pure like movie star, right? Kuch bhi convince kar. They'll convince you to
like when it's their face, like he could be looking as drab as ever, like with like jabasti flat lighting, barely any makeup, but like the way he delivers it, he's like, yep, this is the thing. This is gonna be huge.
Also, that speech itself is like pure cheese. Like there's no like room for edginess in that. I think like we know you're going to be great.
And there's no one deflating the room and be like, hello, thoda jada nahi ho gaya. Nothing. It's all, as you said, like Affleck is going full Damon. Straightforward.
And Affleck, Affleck as a director, and nobody's like interjecting and being like, what? Like they're just like, you are making a great speech. The audience knows that you're making a great speech. The audience in the scene knows.
Which is why like even after the scene, everyone comes to him and be like, bro, what a speech.
Brilliant. which is what you need to sell it. Which is what, like, not to bring up Marvel, but if a Marvel movie hoti, someone would have pointed out why are you making a cheesy speech.
What would happen in a Marvel movie is like midway through his speech, Dave Bautista in the corner would be like munching on something and like would disrupt the flow.
Or Damon himself would be like, what am I doing here? But exactly, right. That this sort of earnestness is gone. Like, and Matt Damon has done what I got reminded of in that scene was that we bought a zoo sequence, right? Like, we will buy a zoo. And again, like Cameron Crowe ka influence so hai, right? It's a very Jerry Maguire kind of movie also. Which is, again, like, it's nice to, this thing, revisit those years. And like Affleck, abhi tak to theek hai, you know, Live by Night was terrible, but like Affleck has proven that he's like very skilled.
Yeah. I mean, Argo was proof of that.
Yeah, that
Argo was a
final
movie where
thing-
Affleck was doing all these Damon speeches,
yeah.
selling them to be like, we can do this rescue.
But like in a more I don't know, he was playing a very serious person.
Yeah,
like he
yeah.
wasn't.
I mean, he had to play serious, right? He was part of the intelligence community or something, right?
Yeah. But here the winning kind of move that this movie kind of makes is that Damon is genuinely like passionate, right? And he isn't passionate about Nike per se.
Yeah,
He
he's not
isn't
passionate about like selling shoes. Like that's not his thing.
He doesn't care about shoes. All
Yeah.
he cares about is that people should recognize Michael Jordan ka talent.
Yeah.
And he is kind of the
He's a
conduit.
basketball fan first, right? Which is like obvious from the get-go. Like they make it clear the way he's at the games, the way he's like watching the games, or maybe way he's even talking to like a supermarket cashier. Like you know, this is a guy who loves basketball first.
Yeah, he loves the sport, and he's witnessed true talent.
That's why even he like in the first meeting we see that drab meeting that happens. He dunks on one of his colleagues, right? He's like, "Oh, you just picked the guy who's 6. Like, okay, what do you like about him? Like, you know nothing about him."
And Affleck kind of says, "You come here and you do that all the time, so nobody really likes you," types. Which is it's like.
But that's also the reason like Phil Knight has hired him is because he didn't hire. He could have hired like a you know a madman like John Hamm guy who's just like the face who sells things. But no, he hired like a numbers in the weeds guy.
What I really liked about this dynamic also is that you know that this is just like a tiny fraction of the larger story, right? Because you know that Nike has existed for so many years, and you know that Jordan का तो obviously career शुरू ही नहीं हुआ है, so वो तो अलग chapter ही है in the future, right? But then it is also the suggestion that Phil Knight and Sonny go back a long way, you know?
Yeah.
Like those were the days type things, conversations also.
Yeah, there's history everywhere, right? Like there's history with like Sonny and like what Christmas in a character, David Fogg, that agent guy.
Yeah, and the Marlon Wayans guy who comes to one scene, you know.
Yeah.
But the
which apparently was a suggestion from like Jordan himself.
Marlon Wayans.
Yeah, not the actor, but like including the character.
Oh, the character. But that felt like a deleted scene waiting to happen. That was कोई point नहीं.
So apparently, like Jordan, like they didn't actually go to him first. Like the guy who wrote the script, whatever the writer, who I've never heard of him before this movie. And then Affleck and Damon like went to Jordan after the script was done, and then he made like suggestions, which is
Viola Davis. Right?
Yeah. Which is Viola Davis as well. And he made casting suggestions and he also made script suggestions. And then Affleck and Damon have done like ghostwriting, uncredited.
Which you would imagine, right? Because
once you get them on the movie, it's just like if you get their pairing, it just feels like they're never gonna be like only the face. They're gonna contribute behind the scenes.
The literal Oscar winners.
Yeah. And like he's literally directing. He's not gonna like just direct someone else's script. He's gonna put his touches on it.
Which is the story that was that Vulture interview, right, with the writer, where basically the writer was like, "Dekho, मैं nobody हूँ," and on set I went and I watched all these guys. They're all like legends. They were like obviously improvising and doing their own, like putting their own spin on the script. And Chris Tucker literally did not follow a single word, like everything he came up with. And he's like, I understand that, obviously that's going to happen. But then right at the end of production, Affleck comes to him and tells him that, listen, you're going to get sole credit for this. Because when we started out, like people were nice to us and we want to kind of pay it forward, which is a nice story, right?
Yeah.
Because he gets sole credit actually, the writer. It's a really strong script, you know, like of course every script is kind of multiple chefs, you know, in the kitchen.
Yeah, like they've been through it, right? I think that's why they did that Nice Sketchers, because Affleck and Damon have been through that cycle before, like 25 years or whatever.
Yeah. Those guys came up with like Weinstein, so they must have really seen
they've seen a very different side of Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's much nicer with like people like Affleck and Damon around. As you can tell, like Weinstein would never do that. What they just did for him.
What was I thinking? Yeah, Viola Davis. We haven't spoken about Viola Davis. like another great scene at the. It's a really funny scene, right? The one at the end where basically I felt everything was for naught. Matt Damon somehow manages to convince Michael Jordan to sign with Nike, which everybody's like, yeah, people are literally like punching the air and everything. And then she's like, I want this, which is, we know now, obviously, because that's primary source of Michael Jordan's wealth.
Yeah.
But then just I was fascinated by just the moment in which the movie is kind of willing to allow everything to just deflate. Like, it's going to end on a happy note, right? But in that moment,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, so you're going to take a very triumphant moment. You've been building towards this pura 1.5 ghanta se. And the moment you hit it, literally 5 seconds later, you're allowing it to deflate, which is a really cool move, right? Because then you're setting up another kind of triumphant moment, which is going to be obviously more impactful. Which is also
Because like the entire movie has been about like Sunny like pushing the limit, right? With Nike and with Phil and getting them to do like the bare minimum in a way, right? They're like, okay, 250 kar do please, like itna hamari auqaat hai. Jabki Nike is making like minting billions or whatever every year, but they're giving $500,000 to the basketball department. So he stretched everything. He lied, right? He kept the fact that they would pay a fine on the colorful shoe every match because he knew there was no way that was gonna fly with Phil. Then the car thing happens out of nowhere, right? Like how did they afford the car? I have no idea. Nike.
But car to pehle they discussed कि हाँ गाड़ी भी चाहिए उसको.
No, but they hadn't included in the offer until he signed or whatever, right? So like somehow they came like bought a Mercedes. I don't know उसका budget कहाँ से आया. Maybe Phil के pocket से आया होगा. And then उसके बाद, so he's already stretched like his like goodwill with everyone, right? Like ये चाहिए. And then, as you said, like then it comes up. Then he's like, oh, and Sunny's in that moment. Sunny's just like, this is not gonna happen, right? I've used up all my goodwill.
He gives up.
There is no way. He gives up. He's like, yeah, there is no way Phil is gonna look at me and he's gonna like punch me in the face if I even try to bring this up.
I mean, if you look at it structurally, that entire sequence is not very different from the opening sequence of like Top Gun Maverick, where the movie sets up an objective, it hits that objective, and then it's like, no, wait, let's push it,
Yeah.
And that is kind of more satisfying. Like, Tom Cruise is going to push it, and Tom Cruise is going to hit that new target also. Just as that Matt Damon is going to somehow make it happen. But yeah, this is one of those cleverly written things, it's like almost airtight. And the holes that there are and that you spot, you're like, whatever, chalta.
Yeah, it's mostly the thing we discussed, right? It's like, it's the thing where like it feels like some parts are written with the knowledge, like with hindsight in mind, like they know has happened in the future. So those kind of scenes, like it's just like, aren't you like a bit overselling it?
Like
otherwise,
like Matt Damon knows कि he literally lays out पूरा Jordan का future in that speech.
Yeah,
like suddenly,
and they even give us, and they know like they're being cheesy about it, so they even give us like archival footage. They're like, chalo, like if you're gonna do it, we might as well do it like all the way.
Yeah, it's full awareness, right?
Yeah,
it's like we know exactly what we're doing in this.
Yeah, he's literally like, in that moment, he's become narrator for the future. He's not like Sunny Vaccaro anymore. He's like, अब ये हुआ, फिर ये हुआ, फिर ये हुआ, उसी कड़ी में, as you know.
Yeah. Because the movie knows that right? So it'd be foolish of the movie to kind of play it realistically and be like, oh yeah, but out of these 5 things that Matt Damon predicted, only 3 came true, which would have been actually the case if something like this were to happen.
Yeah.
But the movie's like, no, why would you do that? Sabko pata hi hai. Lean into
what did you make of them not ever showing Jordan?
I originally actually thought that was a Jordan thing, like the real Michael Jordan thing. Like maybe he was like, no, I will charge $10 million per minute of my likeness being used. That is my I know this is not a cynical movie, but that is my cynical interpretation of whatever that was.
Yeah, like, I would have thought that until the point I think I read that Jordan was like consulted by Affleck and Damon. So like once that I read that, I was like, okay, that couldn't be the reason,
and
right? Like they would have brought that up.
Consultation, Michael Jordan was like $10 million. Please.
They would have brought that up. So like that's sort of like out of the window for me. So like I think what is the other thing, because like Jordan's face is so recognizable from like whatever when he was 18 to whatever age he was, that they were like, there's no point showing someone else.
I don't think so. Like people like Phil Knight's face is, I guess, like you know how what he looks like, right? You know what Serena Williams
Okay,
looks like.
I guess you do. I don't know what Phil Knight looks like. At least I don't know what Phil Knight looked like in like 1990, 84 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but my point is that people know what historical figures, especially like Michael Jordan or Serena Williams or whatever. Right?
Yeah, I think so. That's what. So they know these figures, right? But no one really knows like what Sonny Vaccaro or Phil Knight looked like in 1984. So it's fine to like cast them, even like stretching it to as far as Jordan's mother, because no one like really remembers Jordan's mother in 1984 maybe. But like I think everyone knows what like Jordan looked like when he was 18 and 20.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's the case. Maybe it's just like a creative decision where they're like, yeah, let's just not. It's not his story, you know. We're approaching this from this angle, so let's just play it from that angle. And then, I mean, he's in the shadows. He talks in one scene, like right at the end on the phone.
Yeah. He's like purposefully, he's like turned away in one scene, like looking at like the wall or whatever.
Yeah. So they've decided to obscure his like physical appearance, you know, for whatever reason. So that feels like something that they feel like just, you know, it's more in line with what the story that they want to tell. Maybe it's just very straightforward. There's no like sneaky behind the scenes stuff. Who knows? But it really isn't, you know, like you could have had those scenes जिसमें like Jerry Maguire में, you know, Cuba Gooding के साथ phone पे लगा हुआ होता है, Tom Cruise, you know. You could have had those scenes. Yeah. And I'm sure like Sonny at some point must have had a conversation with Michael Jordan.
He does, right? At the end.
At the end, but like during the...
So I thought like they were going to break that rule in that moment. It's like they were keeping that rule until that moment. Even in that moment, they do not break that rule.
But yeah, whatever. It's fine. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, I need to see Michael Jordan.
Yeah, no, but I don't care about that either. I was obviously curious why you would make that choice.
Yeah, so my cynical side of my brain was like, paise. On the other side is like, oh, genuinely they thought that let's just put him in the shadow.
Jordan's like, you cannot find an 80-year-old who looked as good as I did in that age. Yeah. It's not possible, so don't try.
But yeah, this is one of those stories where basically everybody's like put on like this Mount Rushmore kind of thing. Like everybody is just brilliant, great. What amazing people, you know, like Michael Jordan, great. Phil Knight, what a visionary. Sonny, look at him. Nike as a company. Now what he would...
Even though in that moment he's like, everyone's gonna be forgotten except you in the speech. And then Phil Knight is questioning, he's like, why would I be forgotten? Now, I love that. That was like a rare like humor highlight for me. I was like, I'll be remembered. Why do you think I'll be forgotten?
But yeah.
The movie like really like liberally like, you know, dunks on like the CEO again and again whenever it finds the opportunity, which I found like hilarious.
I mean, as long as...
a movie, you would really be like, we are making like a testament to Nike, right? Nike, look at company, kya kaam kiya hai Air Jordan ka. And then like, we must ensure that their CEO is like made fun of.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like, how, like, do you think people are going to like walk out of this movie and be like, one pair of Air Jordans for us, thank you? You know, like people...
The Top Gun effect of where like, instead of joining the US Navy, you just like...
Shoe
kharido. Aur paise do Michael Jordan ko.
No, but it is, right? It's like, I thought this was great product placement.
I mean, yeah.
The whole movie is product placement.
The literally, like, the shoe is like double lifted. Pehle cloth aata hai bahar, फिर then like Jason Bateman reaches or someone reaches in and then pulls the shoe out of the box. I'm like, okay.
I would not be surprised if suddenly like Jordan like sales like have...
I'm surprised that there hasn't been like a Prime Video like Nike collaboration yet of some sort. Where like Ben Affleck and Damon appear on some red carpet and hold the Air Jordan 1 in their hand and be like, hi.
What?
Or at least I guess that's what we expect of like Bollywood. So we're just like projecting now.
Bollywood mein to Bollywood mein Juta would have been the star. Like every scene would have been about...
poster mein hota hai, literally.
Yeah.
And the movie would be called like, you know, Air Jordan, not like the subtle air as they've gone for.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But this is like in your face, whatever. But this is the kind of thing that works. It's just skillfully made.
The likes of Affleck, Damon, Bateman can say it.
You really need that.
Messina, like I haven't spoken of Messina, but like Messina like is insane, especially in that first call. Not first call, the second call where he goes bat shit crazy on him because he went directly to the parents. That call is insane.
Well, I also was again but I'm again reminded of Top Gun Maverick for some reason. I'm like, this Chris Messina exists only to bother Matt Damon. That is his only. He's like John Hamm, right, from that movie. Like, और कोई काम नहीं है. You're an extremely skilled actor, and all the movie requires you to do is just be.
Take Sonny Vaccaro's case.
That's all you have to do. Like, you won't have to like add shades to your character. No, just take shade, just play it one note.
Yeah. And then the movie at the end uska case le leti hai finally. He's like, he sold his company for $100 million. After that, he dined alone. Did you have to do that? Poor guy.
But yeah, overall, yeah, fun.
Yup. Time to wrap it up. Okay, that's all for this episode of The Long Take. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at thelongtakepod. You can write to us at thelongtakepod@gmail.com. Please leave us a rating and a review. We're in this episode, and we will see you next week.